I get it, you're standing in front of the shop page, scrolling past a sea of laser tubes, wondering if you'll end up throwing another $100 into a component that never really fits your workflow. You don't want to waste money on a tube that looks great on paper but ends up being a headache in the shop, and you want to know if the tube H41001110W is actually worth it for the kind of projects you're doing. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what this piece actually is. The H4 is a 100110W laser tube, 1,450 mm long and 60 mm in diameter, and it comes with built-in line lasers. In plain English, that means it's a pretty long, fairly thick glass tube that can pump a decent amount of power into a CO laser cutter or engraver. If you've ever tried to cut inch acrylic or carve deep into hardwood, you know that you need more wattage than the 4060W tubes you see on entry-level machines. That extra power translates into faster cuts, cleaner edges, and the ability to work with thicker materials without having to slow the feed rate to a crawl. Now, who actually benefits from that extra power? If you run a small to medium fabrication shop, or you're a serious hobbyist who spends most weekends turning raw sheets of wood, acrylic, or even leather into finished parts, the H4 can shave minutes off each job. Those minutes add up, especially when you're churning out dozens of pieces for a client. The line laser feature is another practical perk. It projects a visible line on the work surface that helps you align your cut before you even fire the main beam. In a busy shop where you might be swapping out materials all day, that visual cue can save a lot of trial and error. On the flip side, the tube size is not something to ignore. At 1,450 mm, it's longer than many standard kits, which means you need a machine chassis that can accommodate that length. If your current frame is built around a 1,000 mm tube, you'll have to either modify the frame or purchase a new one. That's a hidden cost that many first-time buyers overlook. The 60 mm diameter also means the housing needs a slightly larger bore, and the cooling system has to move more air to keep the glass from overheating. In practice, that translates into needing a more robust water cooling loop or a higher capacity fan setup. If you're not prepared to upgrade those peripherals, you might find the tube runs hotter than it should, which can shorten its lifespan. Speaking of lifespan, the H4's glass envelope is built to handle the higher wattage, but it also means you're dealing with more intense thermal cycling. Users who keep their machines running for long shifts need to monitor the tube temperature closely. In my conversations with a few shop owners who've already installed similar high-power tubes, the consensus is that regular break-in runs starting at lower power and gradually ramping up help the glass settle and reduce the chance of premature failure. That's a practical step that you won't find in the spec sheet but can make a big difference in real-world durability. Another practical consideration is the power supply. A 100110W tube draws significantly more current than a 40W unit, so you'll need a supply that can handle the extra load without sagging. If you try to pair the H4 with an undersized power source, you'll notice flickering, inconsistent beam strength, and potentially tripping your circuit breaker. The good news is that many mid-range CO machines already come with a 120V or 240V supply that can be upgraded with a simple plug-in module, but you'll have to verify the rating before you buy. So, let's break it down. Who should buy the Tube H4? If you're already comfortable swapping out tubes, you have a machine that can physically accept the length and diameter, and you have or are willing to invest in a power supply and cooling system that matches the higher demand, this tube is a solid step up. It's especially compelling for anyone who needs to cut thicker stock regularly, or who wants to increase throughput without sacrificing cut quality. The line laser is a bonus for anyone who struggles with precise positioning, as it lets you see the beam path without turning the laser on fully. Who should skip it? If you're a casual user who only does occasional engraving on thin materials, the extra power is overkill and the extra infrastructure will likely eat into any savings you hope to get from a higher watt tube. Likewise, if you're on a tight budget and can't afford to upgrade your power supply or cooling, you might end up with a tube that runs hot, shortens its own lifespan, and possibly damages other components. For those cases, sticking with a 6080W tube that fits your current chassis is the smarter move. Now, let's talk value beyond the headline numbers. The H4's real advantage is that it lets you broaden the